Today is Friday, May 8th, 11 o'clock Miami time, and I am here with Bernardo for Brescia. Bernardo, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to speak with me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to this.
Bernardo, can you tell us where you are and how the recent events surrounding this pandemic have changed the structure of your life and work?
I'm at my home in Coconut Grove, which is very close to downtown Miami. This room is actually the children's playroom, where I set up an office. So you can see the little theater there for the puppets, you know, the little leftover of the children's time in the room. But I have a table here with a camera over it, so I can put drawings and sketch. I can make copies. I can scan, send the sketches to the different people I'm dealing with. And essentially the day starts sometimes even earlier than it used to be, because you don't have to get over to the office. And it lasts till very late at night because you don't leave the office. You are at home. So in fact, you're probably working, who knows, 18 hours a day. But it is a recreation of the interaction that we have as principals with the teams that work on various projects, because instead of coming into sitting around a table, we sit around a table, actually, that is video photographed, and we can exchange and sketch together on the drawing, freehand if we choose to, or sketching on the screen if we choose that way, but often freehand sketching is faster, and it connects brain to specific solution, you know, in a sketch. So that is how we've been operating in all the offices and people's homes. Some of the offices have reopened, like Shanghai, and others are still operating from homes, but they're really like one office. We started this system and put programs and ensured everybody had computers and setups at home back in January, because we have offices in Asia, and they were the first affected ones, and we needed to continue the work. Projects were not stopped. Later, Paris got the same situation, then South American offices, and then the United States, you know, New York. But by then, by March, of course, we had been already 2 months into this since January. So, and we had, once we set it up for one office, we set it up for all offices, right? So it was done automatically for all the 10 offices that we had. It's interesting because in the real estate world, in the world of architecture, projects are planned now for 3 years out, 4 years out. You know, we have to do the design and the working drawings, all the engineering, then it goes out for bid, then construction starts, and then the closeout of that is way out there. And I think most of our clients believe that in 3 years, 4 years, you know, there will be some treatment, vaccine, cure of some sort, and that the world will come back to what human beings are, social animals that are curious and inquisitive and want to go to places and meet people, and therefore, for now, absent other news that tell us differently, there is the optimism that things will be back, not tomorrow, not next month, but our world is not that we are preparing a dish to be served immediately. It's we are serving it in 3 years, you know, or more generally, in large projects in 4 or 5. So therefore, we've been continuing to operate like a real office. And actually, a lot of people have felt that the efficiency, the response time has been very good. And I do have to say, Shanghai is reopened as a real office, and officially. And it is interesting that the staff was eager to go back and work at the office. after work, or as I said, lunch or something. So it is, and in general, everybody in our offices is eager to go back to the office, but they realize we have to live with a virtual office now, and we do it. It's just not as fun. That's all.
Bernardo, in hearing you talk, I was curious. I have a sort of follow-up question, because I was struck by the fact that at the beginning of your answer, you spoke about productivity and how, in a way, productivity may even be increased because the length of your day is even longer perhaps than it is in the physical office, and because you've set up in your home, you don't even have to transport yourself. There's no time. And so I'm wondering if, as we go back, do you feel that this experience will maybe even change the way that you structure the work in the office? Like, can you see a future where people will be working remotely at least part of the time, more long term, or do you think that this will end when the pandemic ends?
Well, we allow freedom. People can work from wherever they want to. It has always been that way. We just, and I think measurement of productivity is not always translating into number of hours. And maybe the number of hours is longer because we don't have the instant exchange of ideas. In the office, if somebody has a question regarding a specific aspect on a building, how does the hotel lay out, or what's or something on water, I mean, they go to the right person in the office right there and get the answer continued. So there's a productivity associated with working more hours and having this virtual office. And there's a productivity involved in that exchange of ideas or inquiries that one may have with an expert within the office that is instant. If you're in the office, you just walk to the table of the person. So I think maybe there's a balancing act, the hours and that interaction, the professional interaction, and maybe in the balance where we were, it's just that it's a different kind. And I think that we're trying to replace that interaction through the video. You got to set it up. You got to put together the WebEx or the Zoom. We have to organize it, and make scans and send them. When sometimes you have to, in the office, you do it on the fly right there. So no, I don't think the productivity has changed. I think that we try to essentially keep it up. And there's not, historically, there's been, forever, there's been a value to exchange of ideas and to human interaction. And we're trying to replace it artificially the best way we can.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I'm optimistic to hear you speak that the projects are continuing, particularly because of what you said, because of the timelines of the projects. And I think that that's great to hear. But I wonder, do you think that that is true because of the structure of your practice, your larger international practice? Do you across the profession, we're hearing different realities, particularly for smaller practitioners. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Do you believe that your projects are continuing because of the size and structure of your firm, or do you think that there are other reasons why that is the case?
See, I'm not an analyst, an economic analyst exactly, so I don't know, but it is possible that because of the nature of our projects, they are always seen as long-term. Also, people have already committed very large investments, or they have already debt committed to the project that can fund the project, and therefore, because of the nature of what we do, it is likely that we may have more of that continuing work. I mean, there's obviously some industries that are more affected, like cruise ports and terminals of that sort, but it is, but nobody's even then saying they're canceling. Maybe it's slowing down because that urgency is not there. Usually, we live in a world of urgency. They need the project tomorrow. How fast can and you get it out. Maybe there's a little bit less of an urgency on certain sectors, but nevertheless, I reiterate, construction is a slow process. It's not just that we go and paint a canvas and it's ready. We gotta engineer it. We gotta then pull it together to get built, and it's the construction period. So our work product we don't see immediately. So for now, the expectation is that things will be fine by the time these projects come online. Your question to the nature of our office is a valid one, because clearly smaller projects are for more immediate delivery. They take a year, not 3 or 4 years, and that is probably it here. Where will we be in a year when you hear that how long it takes for vaccines to be developed and tested with cohorts and get the results of all this phase 1, 2, 3, and all that? It sounds like that solution is not there yet that we know of. But I will tell you that most people feel, at least those we hear out there, that the world will truly come back only when there's a treatment, a vaccine, a cure of some sort. It is unlikely that the world will be the same with all the rules imposed on proximity and crowds and how can you do an arena like we've done, and have 20,000 people in the same room and using the same facilities and toilets and elevators and ramps and whatever, in the crowds. I mean, I think that I hear that aspect as a consensus in the world of architecture,
Actually, I think maybe that would be a good segue to the second question, which is, and it's relatively early on, but nevertheless, having been at home for the last maybe month or so, what are your initial thoughts about the ways in which this pandemic may influence the future world of architecture, or perhaps more broadly, the design of cities? If you think it will have any significant impact.
Well, when everything is uncertain, everything is possible. You can't, with uncertainty, how can you pretend to predict? There's too much uncertainty to think of how the world will be when this is over. We don't even know when it will be over. So, and what will happen in that time frame of if it's short or if it's long, how many things will have changed? How many businesses would have to start from scratch? What are the new customs that would evolve? We really don't know. So I couldn't predict how architecture would change until we have some certainty. And right now we don't. I think in the end, people will want to go back to what they always did. I think mankind is made up of customs. People get accustomed to doing certain things. They feel comfortable with it. And through history, that hasn't changed really. Getting together, a party, going out for dinner, it's been around for a very long time. Sharing a meal, it's spending time with children, with friends, with relatives. It's a normal thing in humans. So I do think that there will be a serious attempt at coming back to where we were once things have settled. And I think down the line, in 4 years, I don't think people will be saying we want to sit apart, 10 feet apart in a restaurant and you'd be spread out. Imagine even the cost of real estate of setting up, of spreading people around. It would be prohibitive. The density of people per square foot is a factor in everything we design. So it would be cost prohibitive. So I think that in addition to that, will people want that? I don't think so. So maybe people would would have learned about standards of cleanliness, washing their hands. I mean, doing certain things that I think that people also, on the exact sense, are animals of customs, you know. So if they get accustomed to washing their hands, they probably will continue, you know. And so maybe some of those aspects, but I think in a direct effect of changing buildings to create further distances, or thinking that such a massive number of people will no longer want to interact at work. Maybe some will get accustomed to working as loners in their home, looking at a screen. But a screen is not a person. It's a screen. It's a utilitarian. It's a machine. You know, so I'm more of an optimist that when things settle, there will be some effect, but not a complete transformation of the human race in the way it behaves with other people. I think the people to people has to continue to be a much part of life.
Yeah, I think much of what I'm hearing you describe has to do with the kind of importance of the physical world and our ability to interact in it. And to a certain degree, some of your comments have to do with, you know, proximity and density. And many of the conversations that I've been having, this question of density and proximity, both in like a kind of immediate context, whether it be a restaurant or an interior, or more importantly, maybe the question of density in cities, has prompted people to think about what this might, what might happen. And a lot of the conversation has focused on this idea of decentralization, whether this recent pandemic will influence or propel a kind of decentralization of the city in the ways that maybe it happened after the World War II. Do you think that might have any that might be an outcome? I mean, I know it's conjecture, but if we just think about people not wanting to live in such close proximity, it may call into question the hyperdensities associated with our metropolises. Do you think that will be the case, or do you simply think that eventually through these processes of hygiene and taking care of health and safety, we will just resume normality?
As I said, you said it is conjecture. We can't say. I could only guess. But my guess, in the end, economics rules and lifestyle rules. And moving out to the suburbs means I spend time commuting. I have to own a car. I can't walk to work. I have to take trains from the suburbs into the city or drive. And none of it is better. To take the train is as I think rather walk. So I don't know about this notion of that the cities will suburbanize and become thinner and spread out. I don't think that is necessarily a result. I mean, people will decide, so I can't predict, but I believe that people value time more than ever, and I think living near work is and near where they entertain themselves is valued. It has been valued more and more. People are understanding that spending an hour each way, total 2 hours of their life in a car, going to a home far from their job, is time that they could spend with their families or being productive, whichever way, whether working or enjoying themselves. And I think we've learned that. And I think in the end, there may be a temporary period where there's a fear and people move out, but in the end, logic will rule and it will make sense. If things are safe, if there is no disease around, I don't see the reason why people would change that dramatically. And in fact, we have seen, irrespective of the virus, independent of out in the, for those who don't know, in the way out in the edges of the city, you can live near the city in a semi-dense village where you can have apartments, homes, everything. You can walk, bike, go everywhere. I go from my house to the office at 8 blocks, and I can bike, walk, take a golf cart. I don't need to own a car. And there's a certain efficiency of spending more time at home, more time at the office. And I think that other examples, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Bellevue, Washington. I mean, there are many very urban neighborhoods that are not so far, Alexandria, Virginia, from the core of the city. And I think those are going to be very popular for those who remain fearful of being in the core of the city, but don't want to miss out on being part of the action. So, you know, they choose these sort of very urban places that are very near, but not in the middle. But if anything, that's the only one I can see happening because it was already trending in many cities in the United States, including Miami. And I mean, to some extent, Wynwood, Midtown, all the are not just Coconut Grove, Coral Gables. I mean, there's sort of that. I mean, that's a big difference than saying I'm going to Compton, you know? And for those who don't know our neighborhood in Miami, these are places that are, we have examples, very good examples of early urbanity. But I think many other cities do too.
I think that's a very good point. And in listening to you speak, I think your optimism is palpable, and I appreciate that in light of the conversations that I've been having. And I also wish you continued health and safety and prosperity. And I look forward to interacting in the physical world sooner rather than later. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.